So that you can set it up.
What is up, and welcome to the Red and Bold Show. My friend Anthony Robertson and I are excited to be here to talk 49ers. In fact, we were talking right when we got in here. How's it going, Ant?
It's going good, and we got some new updates. Kalia Davis practice window that's opened up. That's good news, and I think that we're hoping for more good news on the injury front as the week progresses because the 49ers got a tough game against the Arizona Cardinals. Don't let the 1-3 record fool you. They're a good team, a really good running game, and so the 49ers, it just doesn't get easier from here. It just gets more difficult over the next 4 weeks, and they've got a big stretch that they've got to win. But I'm feeling good because I broke down the All-22 film, and I'm very happy with how the 49ers played in that game against the Patriots. And their defense, the Patriots defense, is no joke. That's a good defense. I'm not saying it's a top, 5, top 10 defense, but I'm saying it's a very good defense, top half of the league. And they played really well on offense. And that's good news. Anytime you can put out good tape and play well, you can usually build off of that.
Yeah. And you're right. This stretch of games is going to be tough. You have the Cardinals, the Seahawks in Seattle on a Thursday night. You have who else is in there? The Chiefs, the Cowboys, I think, are in there.
That's it.
So some tough games coming up. It's possible that the 49ers could win them all. It's possible they could lose them all. I don't think that they'll do either. I think that they'll probably split or maybe 3-1, something like that. But I'd be happy with that. I just hope that they can come out of there, at least split those games, preferably win 3. But Josh is in the chat and he said all easy dubs. So yeah, maybe so. Maybe that Chiefs game will be easy. They've got to beat the Chiefs at one point, but at the same time, you could say that the Cowboys at some point are going to beat the 49ers. So hey, stranger things have happened. We could see the 49ers beat the Chiefs and lose to the Cowboys. So we could see them beat the Seahawks in Seattle and lose to the Cardinals. You never really know in this league, but we will see. Well, let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about the Patriots game. Josh is getting back at me. He's saying Cowboys won't have Parsons or Lawrence. Yeah, it's definitely going to be harder for them but their offense is what carries them. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk about that Patriots game and some of the things that came out of that. First thing I want to ask, is the 49ers defense back, or is it just that they were playing an offense and a quarterback that's not that good?
Well, you can only perform against the team that you're going to play. And I thought playing against New England, they did a really good job. They stifled the run game of Ramondre Stevenson, and that New England Patriots offense was averaging 144 yards per game. They came in, shut them down, held them to 73. Anytime you do that, you're doing a good job when it comes to your fits and being in the right place at the right time. And I thought they did a pretty good job of slowing down that run game. Now, it helps when your offense is also making some plays, but when you're making plays on defense, Fred Warner getting the interception, the pick six was huge in this game. I don't know if I say the defense is all the way back, but I thought it was a nice step in the right direction. And I saw some things from Nick Sorensen that I really liked as far as some of the scheme things that he did.
I think we just lost you there for a second. Your screen went black and you cut out on us. So you were saying that anytime that you can hold an offense down the way that you hold them down, that you're doing something right because you can only play who's in front of you.
Right. And so Nick Sorensen, I thought he did some good things in this game. I like some of the schematic things that he was able to do. He kept the New England Patriots off balance. He brought 5-man defensive lines. That was great against their 12 personnel. I think that's something they can continue with. And in fact, that's something the Commanders did to the Cardinals. So we might see a little bit of that in this game as well. I like that look. I like the run blitzes as well. I thought the run blitzes were really good for the 49ers. And so overall, I thought it was a good performance. Nick Sorensen did a good job, and you got good execution from most of the defensive players. Overall, happy with their performance.
Yeah, they dominated like they should, and really that defensive line got after the Patriots, made Jacoby Brissett. I don't know how that guy was walking the next day because they pounded him. He really took a beating, and so it was great to see Nick Bosa. Great to see the rest of that defensive line perform as well as they did. That's the kind of game that we want to see. Were there any surprise, like defensive players that you were surprised to see jump out at you? I mean, obviously, Evan Anderson played in his first game. We had Malik Mustafa starting on defense. Who jumped out to you that you didn't expect to jump out?
I think there was two guys on the defensive line. I think first off, Jordan Elliott. I thought he would do well, but I thought he did really well. And he looked great when they put him in the zero tech over the top of the center and those 5-man fronts. He was getting a big push up the middle. He was getting skinny and playing better against double teams than I've seen him do. I thought he played really good in the first half. And we know he took friendly fire from Malik Collins and he was out for the second half, but I thought it was a performance they could build on. I like that from him. And then I think Sam Okawanu, I think he's been on everyone's chart now as he got everyone's attention from what he did in that game. He played well. Was it perfect? No. But was he out there making plays? Yes. And so I thought he was a nice addition to that 49ers rotation and getting the ball out, causing a turnover is huge, but also he had a tackle for loss as well, where he flew upfield and stopped Ramondre Stevenson on a pitch play. You haven't seen that so much from 49ers edge defenders, and especially not the backup edge defenders. So that was good to see. So I thought two defensive linemen, one on the interior and one on the outside, that both played really well in this game.
What about Malik Mustafa? He missed a tackle early, but he made some plays, and everybody's seen the play where Fred Warner returned the interception and Mustafa put somebody on their back. What did you see from him?
I think right now he's playing a little out of control. He's so excited. He wants to go in and make plays. He pulls the trigger. I love that about him, the instincts. But right now he's just out of control and he needs to kind of bring it in. It needs to be more of a controlled frenzy. So he needs to be able to kind of harness what he's doing and make sure he's getting the technique right. Still want him to keep all the instincts, the ability to pull the trigger, go downhill, make tackles, be aggressive, but you've got to do it in the right way. And I think that's what he's learning right now. And you can usually find his mistakes with him being out of control or too anxious or too willing to go make a play. Those are things you can work with, but right now it's kind of catching up to him a little bit. At some point, he's going to figure it out and he's going to be just fine. But I like the eagerness. I love a guy that's wanting to go make plays. I'd rather have an eager player than a passive player. But right now he's got to figure out when to be aggressive and when to kind of sit back and just kind of take your time. And I think he'll learn that through more snaps and more maturity.
Let's see. Where did I see this? Kenny 49ers said we beat a terrible team. Yippee. Yeah, right. New England's a terrible team, but they beat them like you should beat a terrible team. I mean, when you have a team like New England, you ought to beat them pretty bad, and that's what the 49ers did. Gold-Blooded said, I'll hold out until they play Arizona and Seattle, two teams with good physical running games and deep threats. That's we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that is definitely something to be concerned about. How about this? Josh mentioned this earlier. Special teams keeps teams alive too often this season. How do they fix the special teams unit? Because they have the second game in a row that they almost let a team back into the game. I mean, against the Rams, they did have some special teams gaffes that let the Rams back in it. And that also almost happened against the Patriots. So what do you do? How do you fix the special teams unit, especially in the middle of the season when I really don't see Kyle Shanahan firing Brian Schneider? Especially in the season. So how do you fix a special teams unit that's struggling right now?
First thing you do is you recognize what your problems are, and they made some critical mistakes in week 2 and week 3. And I think those are really the problems that everyone is seeing, is that Brian Schneider made a couple of coaching errors. They made some alignment issues, and then they just weren't on their P's and Q's as far as responsibilities, including the block punt against Minnesota. all you can do is go back to the part where you find out what those mistakes are and then correct them, coach them, go in there and get reps and work on it. And the more reps you get, the better these guys will get at it. I think that when it comes to this game and the fumble by Isaac Guerrero, it's a little bit more of an outlier. You can't coach, anymore that this doesn't happen, right? You can potentially pull him off, work on him not holding on the football, work on fumble drills and stuff like that. But the truth is, he works on that every single day with Bobby Turner in the running back room, securing the football. It's something that he does day in and day out. So I think it was more of an outlier when it comes to this game, but weeks 2 and 3 were really bad special teams wise, whether that was schematically or just the choices that were made by Brian Schneider. So you got to go back, make sure you know what you're supposed to do, and then handle it in a big way. They got a chance to turn this thing around. You're only a quarter of the way into the season, 3 quarters left. You can turn it around, but they need to pay attention to detail and they need to be on their P's and Q's. And if you're not, you're going to have more lapses in judgment. And you're right. Those types of things can hurt the football team. It's a third of the game. Can't allow that to be a reason you lose football games.
Kenny 49ers said, I heard we don't even practice kickoffs. Is this true? You've been to training camp. What have you seen from their special teams practices?
Yeah, they did practice kickoffs. One of the days I text you because you were asking me about it. Both Friday practices that I was there early on in training camp, they practiced special teams in 2 different sets, including kickoff and kickoff return. And it was a lot of reps over that time period. They spent about 30 minutes in total each day on special teams in kickoff and kickoff return. And so, yeah, I saw it a lot. There was several days that they didn't work on it as extensively, but that's kind of to be expected when it comes to special teams. They work on different things. So there's so many different teams units, punt return, field goal. There's a lot of things you work on, a lot of techniques. So they went through a lot of things, repped a lot of those things, but kickoff and kickoff return were worked on, especially on those 2 Fridays that I was out there.
Got a couple of questions about the 49ers re-signing Jalen Graham. Lou asked thoughts on reacquiring Graham and Campbell's play, talking about Devondre Campbell. And then Josh asked, signing of Graham he's asking if it has any indication on Fred Warner's availability this week.
I think it comes down to the availability of several linebackers. Kyle Shanahan mentioned, D. Winters is still been dealing with an ankle off and on. You've got Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles who stayed down, and so you've got that to monitor. So they just got a health issue with Curtis Robinson going on the IR. I think it makes sense. You have a player like Curtis Robinson that could do it all, and he's a great special teams addition as well. He's out, so now you have a roster spot to fill, and I think with the injuries, Jalen Graham made a lot of sense. I love that move. I think you put a guy in that already understands your system. He doesn't have to learn. You plug and play. He helps you on special teams, and he gives you depth at the position. So we know that they weren't really ready for Tatum Bethune to get significant snaps. He's not good enough, again, in coverage yet. So getting Jalen Graham back in is a good move. I don't think it means Fred is not going to play. I think what it means, though, is they're insulating themselves in case they have some injuries at the position still. So they had to do it, and I'm hoping that Fred's still going to be able to go, but we'll see. He didn't practice today.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think that Jalen Graham coming back has anything to do with Fred Warner. Let me ask you this. Is Brock Purdy the best quarterback in football right now? Obviously, I'm not asking is he better than Mahomes or Burrow or any of those guys because, when he's picked in the last round for a reason. Not entirely sure what those reasons are, but I think they have to do with measurables like combine type stuff and arm strength and all of those things. Although he throws the ball like I never see him come up short. Like if he throws it deep, or if he has to throw the ball outside the pocket, outside the numbers, he seems to do just fine. So I think he's plenty athletic. But what do you see from Brock Purdy? Because right now, what he's doing is very impressive to me. Right now, in this moment, he's playing as well, if not better, than every other quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to say he was playing the best at quarterback in the league right now, I don't have an argument with that. He's been playing really well, and he's taking this 49ers offense to another level. because there was always limitations with quarterbacks that the 49ers had before. There were certain things that they couldn't do. And Brock Purdy's proving right now that he can do it all. So what teams would do to the 49ers before Brock Purdy was they would muddy up the middle. In between the hash marks, lots of bodies. They would take things away, those deep crossers. They'd make it tough, especially for previous quarterbacks that couldn't win outside the numbers. What did Brock Purdy do over his first 2 seasons? He proved he could consistently win outside the numbers. So now teams have been spreading out that way horizontally, and now he's proving that he can beat them vertically. Against the Patriots, they wanted to sit on those crossers over the middle, which normally would have been a huge problem for the 49ers, but not with Brock Purdy there. He's able to go deep down the field. He hits Debo. He hits Jawan Jennings. Big explosive plays. And he's willing to take shots even to a guy like Chris Conley, who went for a vertical that didn't complete. But the willingness to do so can take a defense and make them change their philosophy or what they want to do against you. And that ability to be able to do what you want is huge. And Brock's vision, his ability to create when things break down, but also win from the pocket, he's just a complete quarterback. And that's exactly what the 49ers always needed. And so I've been very impressed by him. I only find a couple of plays here and there when we do breakdowns where maybe there's a miss. That is just high-level quarterback play when you barely miss. He's really good. So, yeah, I've been a huge fan of Brock Purdy this season.
Yeah, he's been so good. I mean, he was great last year. This year, he's looked even better. So love what Brock Purdy's doing. This rookie class has been getting a lot of reps, a lot of time on the field during games. Who has stood out to you the most among the rookies on the team?
I think right now it's got to be Renardo Green. I think Renardo Green had a really good game. And, people have brought it up in chat. This isn't the best wide receiver core that they were going to go against with KJ Osborne, and Jalen Polk, the young guy. It's not the most talented. But he still played really well against those guys. And he only got targeted one time in his 17 pass coverage snaps, and it was incomplete. No catch. You can't play better than that. He's been willing to come up and step up and be physical in the run game. To me, I think he's progressing at a level that they want him to progress at. And I'm a huge fan of what he's doing on defense. So he's been fantastic. And I think sometimes, we forget that Dominic Pooney's a rookie at this point because he's just been so consistent. So I didn't even think about him at first. But Dominic Pooney continues to impress. No pressures at all in pass protection this week. He's really brilliant too. Those first 3 guys, we haven't seen Pearsall yet, but those first 3 guys I think are going to be home run hitters for the 49ers. And it hasn't been that often that we've been able to say that about 49ers draft players, but I think they got some good ones in this one.
So who were the 3 that you mentioned? You cut out again. You mentioned Pooney, you mentioned Renardo Green, and who was the 3rd?
I think Pearsall, once he comes back. Okay. We haven't been able to see any Pearsall, but I think once he gets back, I think we're going to be pleasantly happy with what he does.
Good. Let's get to a couple of questions here. Kenny asked, I heard Curtis Robinson is always great in preseason, but once it's time to play real snaps, he's bad. Is that true?
Well, we didn't really see any real snaps from him this season. He didn't really have an opportunity to do that. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I know the 49ers felt that the guys ahead of him were playing better than he was, so he didn't get that opportunity. But I thought he's improved over the last few years being with the 49ers. And I think if you'd have had an opportunity, I think he would have played pretty well.
Next question is from Lou. What about Campbell?
I think Devondre Campbell is playing fine. I've heard the criticisms, and people talking about the fact he had 3 missed tackles. I went back and watched the film, and a couple of those tackles are very difficult tackles to make. It wasn't his fault that some of the situations made it more difficult for him. He's really good against the run. The 49ers have been putting him on the strong side, and playing Sam backer, even though most of the time he's supposed to be Will on those obvious run sets. He's been holding up well there. He had a couple of plays in this game where he engaged and made plays in the backfield. And then I didn't think the coverage was that bad. He got locked up on Hunter Henry on one play. Hunter Henry ran an out and up, and he was running right with them. I thought it was good coverage. I think it's a little overblown with Campbell. I don't think he's playing as bad as maybe people think and what the stats reflect. I think he's consistent. Is he Dre? No. Is he the all-pro Devondre Campbell from 2021? No. But is he a stable, linebacker next to Fred Warner? Yes.
Let me see. I had another one. Here it is. Lou also asked, guys, watching McKivitz, his pass protection was poor. he's going to get Brock hurt. What did you see?
I didn't see poor pass protection. I thought Colton McKivitz did pretty well in this game. I think his PFF score, kind of reflected that. And I don't always agree with PFF, but I did in this one. I thought they've done a good job of giving him help when they needed to, but I thought he held up pretty well. Brock Purdy had time to make deep vertical passes down the field. Anytime you're taking those kind of shots that take a while to develop, you got to have time. And I thought he did a good job. The lineman I thought struggled the most in this game was Aaron Banks. He struggled the most out of all of them in pass protection. And I think that Colton McKivitz is usual suspect, right? He's the guy that they normally go after, but I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line as a whole was pretty good for the game. Maybe not as good as they've been in the run game, but pass protection wise, I felt like they were really good. Well, turning our attention to Arizona, is stopping that run game your biggest concern, or is your biggest concern Kyler Murray and what he can do from a passing standpoint, or a passing and running standpoint?
It's got to be stopping the run game. That team goes as James Conner goes, and that run game goes. Last year, the 49ers struggled against Arizona's run offense late in the season. They can't let a duplicate performance happen. They can't give up 200 yards against James Conner and that running game. So I think that they're going to make sure that's an emphasis. It always is. You come into every game, you want to make a team one-dimensional. So, yeah, you want to take away that run game. And the Cardinals have been running some 12 personnel and some 2 tight end sets. They were without McBride last week, but I expect him to come back from the concussion this week. And that 2 tight end sets will create some difficulties for the 49ers as far as pass defense as well. But they've proven now that they can go 5-man front and help stop that run game, and I expect them to do that when Arizona goes 12 personnel. And so that's going to be the name of the game, stopping it. Teams are still trying to figure out ways to attack Demetrius Flanagan fouls, and Nick Sorensen and the 49ers defense has been finding ways to protect it. And so overall, it's been a chess match, and I thought the 49ers did well last week. We'll see if they can duplicate that performance against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I was concerned about how they were going to do stopping New England's run game because that's the strength of their offense and was the weakness of the 49ers offense going into our defense going into that game. But they did well against the run, like you mentioned. Was that a scheme thing? Was it having bigger bodies in there, or was it just those players saying, you know what, enough is enough, we're going to stop the run?
I think it's a combination of both. So you have to have the mentality that you're going to go in there and stop it. You have to execute with your technique and make sure you're in the right spots and you're playing your gaps and you're keeping gap integrity. And then I think it also comes to scheme. And Nick Sorensen switched it up with the 5-man front. He brought 6 guys sometimes, blitzing Fred Warner, Devontae Campbell. And when you do that, you have those 5 guys. Yes, you lose one of your skilled, more athletic players, but you also create opportunities to keep your linebackers clean. And you don't want the linemen to be able to get out onto your linebackers. And when the 49ers were in the 5-man fronts, they did a good job of keeping them off Fred, off Campbell, so that way they could go make plays. And we've seen it a few times, including the 4th and 1. Fred is untouched, and that's why he's able to get to the hole and make the tackle on Stevenson. So it was a good scheme combination with some good play and just a mentality of the 49ers that they were not going to let the Patriots run the football on them. They're going to have that same mentality this week. You go back and watch last week with Arizona, and when they ran the ball early against the Commanders, they were tough to stop. Later in the game, when the Commanders took that away, probably in the middle of the second quarter, that offense started to stall. So it definitely goes with Conner, and then you can manage that passing game off of that. They average about 177 yards per game through the air. So it's definitely stop the run, make Kyler Murray beat you, I think is the name of the game for the 49ers.
Yeah, and they did bring extra blitzers more often, extra pass rushers, and that was a welcome sight because it really caused a lot of problems for the Patriots.
Yeah, definitely. Nick Sorensen was blitzing about 7 times per game, and then he comes out in this one and blitzes 30% of 64 defensive snaps. That'll just prove how aggressive he was. And at one point in the game, it was at 40%. They were run blitzing. They were, coming after him with extra guys when they thought it was a pass. Overall, it was aggressive. Put the onus on Jacoby Brissett. Put the onus on the Patriots offense to execute. And they weren't able to consistently do that. Can you do that every single week? I don't know if that's the case with some of the better quarterbacks, guys like Matthew Stafford and others that will figure things out. But for a lot of quarterbacks, yeah, you could probably frustrate them, stop that run, force 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. Those are great situations for your defense. And I think we saw that reflected with a 3rd down efficiency for the 49ers on defense, so much better. The Patriots were only able to get 5 of 16 conversions on 3rd down, and 2 of those were on the opening drive. So I thought they did a really good job kind of slamming the door on the Patriots on 3rd down.
Yeah. Where can the 49ers take advantage of the Cardinals? Just saw that Josh wrote you can abuse the Cardinals defense. Where can they take advantage of the Cardinals defense? Where can they take advantage of the Cardinals offense?
Well, for the Cardinals, their main strength on defense is the safeties. You got Budda Baker. He's just highly talented, and they've got a good room when it comes to safeties. When it comes to cornerbacks, that's where you start having some problems. They got Starling Thomas starting. They've got some other guys that Garrett Williams. He's the nickel corner. I think those are advantages 49ers when it comes to the passing game. But then I think when you look at their edge defenders, they got Zaven Collins. He was originally drafted as a linebacker out of Tulsa, and they've moved him to edge defender. And then they've got Kardec, who plays edge defender as well, who's a little bit of a smaller individual. They like to play those guys up, standing up on the edge, and the 49ers like to get push on those guys and be able to run there. So I think they can be taken advantage of in the run game, attacking those edge defenders. I don't think Kaiser White in that linebacker room is as talented as other linebacker rooms the 49ers have faced. So really, it's kind of strength with Kaiser White and the safeties. And other than that, I think you could take advantage of the defense. When you look at the 49ers defense overall, as long as they can stop the run of James Conner, and I think with some of the injuries to the offensive line for Arizona, you're going to have some opportunities and force 3rd and long. You just got to make sure you keep Kyler Murray in the pocket. Make him beat you from the pocket. Make him make consistent throws. I think they can do a pretty good job. I like the matchups on offense and defense, especially 49ers offense versus Arizona Cardinals defense.
Yeah, along those lines, Kenny said Kyler can run circles around us and we'll find plenty of wide open receivers. Yeah, Kyler Murray can cause a lot of trouble, especially if a defense has trouble with a running quarterback. But I do agree with you that stopping James Conner in that running game is the biggest hurdle that the 49ers have. I think Kyler Murray is a secondary hurdle, but that running game is a bigger issue.
Yeah, for sure. The run game is the main objective. You stop the run game and you put them into 3rd and long situations, and you have a better chance of getting off the field. And Kyler Murray's athleticism, right, it's fantastic. And it's tough when you're playing them as a defense because now you don't go with reckless abandon. We seen Nick Bosa last week attacking very deep up the field and trying to get around the corner. That is against a stationary target like Jacoby Brissett. You can't do that this week. This week, it's about rush lane integrity. This week is about, getting pressure on Kyler Murray, but making sure you collapse the pocket. Interior pressure and outside pressure have to be within their lanes. So you've got to make sure you play it just right. But you make him win for the pocket. And consistently, Kyler Murray can't consistently win, play in and play out, throwing the football. And yes, he's got talented wide receivers, but they're not that talented. I mean, they've got good players, but it's not like you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., which is fantastic. But then after that, they don't have the most talented guys that you could possibly think of as wide receivers. They got a speed guy and they got another big guy. I like Charvarius Ward against big physical receivers. I like Diamo Lenore against big physical receivers. So to me, this is a good matchup for the 49ers. Are they going to get open guys sometimes? Of course they are. Is Kyler Murray going to make wicked plays sometimes? Yes. But for the most part, 49ers just got to play consistent and keep him in the pocket.
I think that Lou doesn't agree with your McKivitz take. He said, Ant, go back and watch McKivitz on the Kittle touchdown. I don't remember seeing what McKivitz did on that play, but it turned into a touchdown. So, I'm not going to complain too much about it. But, yeah, McKivitz is bad a lot. We all know that. But I think that he's been better at times this year.
I think it's also the definition of what is bad. If it's a guy coming free from a block, at what point did he come free? George Kittle's running an out and up, and Brock Purdy's throwing the football. I think there's plenty of snaps where Colton McKivitz does so good. And then I think there's going to be times where, yeah, he's not going to block for more than 2.5 seconds, but that's how long you needed to get the play off. And I think that, sometimes it looks like, yeah, he just completely whiffed or he made a mistake. And those are going to happen with all players not named Trent Williams. That's just the way it is. If you watch even Dominic Pooney, there's plays you're like, what happened there? It's offensive line. Everything is hyper aggressive. And we don't talk about the fact that a wide receiver goes down and maybe doesn't get any separation on every single play. It's the offensive line who gets the most critical opinions. Do I think Colton McKivitz is perfect? No. Do I think he played a perfect game? No. Do I think he played a lot better than what Colton McKivitz has played in the past? Absolutely. And I will take that performance from Colton McKivitz every week. But I will go back and watch that play. I did break it down over on Patreon. I will go back and watch the play again, though. That way I can get a better understanding of what McKivitz did on that play. It didn't stick out in my mind, so I'll have to go back and watch.
Last question about the Arizona game. I have to make picks for 49ers Web Zone. So do I pick the Niners? I haven't picked against them this year. I don't think I picked against them last year either. So do I stick with them? Or does that Arizona run game, should that make me consider going the opposite way and picking the Cardinals to win?
I mean, I wouldn't pick the Cardinals in this game. I don't think the Cardinals defense is good enough. Their run game is good, and they'll probably have some success on the ground against the 49ers. But I think the 49ers offense should be able to score a lot of points against the Arizona Cardinals defense. It is not good against the run. It's not good against the pass. And the 49ers offense, when healthy, or at least the health that they had last week, is an explosive offense. They could have easily scored 40 last week. And I think that's the situation with Arizona. The 49ers could easily score well over 30 points, and that means Arizona's offense is going to have to match that. I don't know if they can match that against the 49ers defense. I don't know if they can consistently be able to move the sticks and get into the end zone. So I think it could be one of these situations where the Arizona maybe has some success on offense, but the 49ers are going to have more success on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to score in the 30s and run the ball like they want to run the ball. So, but I mean, they have the ability to perform, to get in a shootout and put up some points. But I tend to agree. I think that the 49ers should win this game, mainly because of that 49ers offense. Every time Brandon Ayuk does something in a game, I have a tendency to think, okay, this may be the catch that turns things around. So far, that hasn't happened. Are we going to see him turn it around and look like himself this year? Or is this going to be a lost year for Ayuk and we just have to wait until next year?
I think we got a long time to go before the season is up, and he's gotten better each week. I think he's gotten more crisp. He's gotten more comfortable. I think that there's still areas that I'm expecting his game to get better. He's not blocking to the level he blocked last year. Some of his routes, he's kind of rounding some things off and not as flat. I don't think his routes are as crisp as they were last year. But all that stuff is going to kind of round into form moving forward. I thought what we saw from Ayuk, though, that deep, the deep dig route down the field, 38-yard gain, that was nice to see. That play alone kind of set up some plays for the 49ers vertically down the field later. I thought that was great. And then that third down catch he made, that was basically Ayuk doing Ayuk things. I mean, just picking that up off the ground was a fantastic play. Pivotal plays in this game. So is it where we want him to be? Absolutely not. But let's see what he looks like 4 games from now. When we get to the Cowboys game, we might see a very different Brandon Ayuk by the time we get there. And what we're really hoping is by the time we come out of the bye week, we're getting the Ayuk from last year. And I think that's kind of what we're trending towards, but it is getting better week in and week out.
So you're going with 49ers to beat the Cardinals. What about over the 3 games after that? Do you think they're going to go 4-0? You think they'll go 3-1?
I don't know. I do think that beating the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks are the most important of the 4 games. And I think that's what they're going to put a lot of their focus on. I think it's going to be tough when it comes to Kansas City because Kansas City is going to be coming off a bye. And I know the 49ers are going to have a mini bye, but they're coming off a full bye. And they have a really, really talented defense. So we'll see what that one looks like in a couple of weeks. But I think the main target is going 2-0 in the next 2. I think they can do that. They've proven they can go into Seattle and win. They've given Geno Smith problems over the last couple of years. And I just think that Seattle defense isn't ready yet. Mike McDonald's making some changes, and I don't think they've got the personnel that he needs to run that defense consistently, watching the Lions kind of cut them up last week. And so I think they can win these first two. The Kansas City game's tough. And then I do think Dallas, right now, the 49ers have a real chance. Brandon Cooks is dealing with something. You've got the injuries on defense. They have CeeDee Lamb and no real running game. And so I don't know. I think the 49ers have a real good shot of going 3-1, 4-0 in this stretch, and that's tough, especially with 2 games in the next 8 days. That's not easy. But if you can come out on the other end of that, I think they'll feel really confident about where they're at.
Great stuff, Ant. Anything else that you want to add before we take off here?
Just the Niners need to get this win. It's a divisional matchup. You can't go 0-2 in division. You had the tough one to the Rams, beat Arizona, right the ship, beat Seattle, and then you'll be sitting in the right position to make the run for the playoffs that you wanted to make. And we'll worry about Kansas City when we get there. But that's the most important thing, is to win these next 2 games. And you've got the formula to do it. Run the ball with Jordan Mason, run play action pass with Brock Purdy, and just let Brock Purdy be Brock Purdy. And when it comes to defense, stop the run and then play timely defense on third down. That is how you're going to win in this league. And I think the 49ers have the potential to do it. And I'm hoping they're going to prove it over the next several weeks.
If they can beat the Cardinals and then beat the Seahawks, then they should be well on their way to clinching another division title. They're a game behind Seattle right now with 2 losses, and Seattle has 1 loss. So if they can win these next 2 games, they'll be tied, and with the head-to-head have a tiebreaker early in the season. But we still have a long way to go, so we'll see what happens. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Red and Bold Show. Please take a minute to subscribe to both channels. We would appreciate that. We appreciate all your support and your love and all that. So appreciate that. Rick says, Rick Diaz in the chat, who cares about Seattle? Who cares? Let's go 49ers. Get that W. That's right. Yeah, we don't care about them. So, and Kenny's predicting 6-2 before the bye. So let's do that. They'll be well on their way if that happens. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week on the Red and Bold Show.